With spring schedules, there's a lot of moving parts, especially with the middle school sports starting to pick up a lot more in this state, especially track and field. There's just an oversight on availability, and it's a lot easier to move a game than it is a track meet with how many moving parts you have for a track meet, whether it's a timing company or multiple schools involved. So I know Salem had an issue with that, and then we had an issue with that. So kind of finding based on the NHIA's guidelines, we want to find the next available date to play. And for us, the next available date to play was Saturday morning. So we scheduled it to then. It was unfortunate, but my role as assistant athletic director, sometimes things you try to double check and triple check things. Sometimes things fall through. So it's just an opportunity to adapt and to overcome a change, and try to teach that thing to our kids. That's what life is. You can have plans and schedules and all that, but sometimes things just change.
We try to adapt. We know, like we set in our calendar that things are at certain times, and when it gets moved around, everything's getting shuffled. It's here, it's there. But it's hard to make every single game when our schedule just gets moved around like that.
It's definitely frustrating. Definitely, like, you get that text from coach, you're like, hey, home field advantage now. It's definitely like you're playing on your turf, your home, you get to defend home with all your guys. It's definitely a great feeling, and you see that it's got moved, and you're like, well, time to just go there and try to get a dub there, but it's definitely frustrating.
It's not fun because we were missing some guys from vacation, and then also just some guys had work and they couldn't get out of it because that's just how it is. So we were down quite a few guys and a lot of varsity players, so we had to trust some of the younger guys to try and come in and play for us. But it's annoying, but you kind of have to try and fight through it, which I thought we did. We had the first goal of the game. We had energy for a bit, but we just kind of slipped out towards the end of the game.
I was at the fire academy doing like a practical, trying to get my fire one, so I was busy with that.
A lot of combining issues. With the beginning of vacation, we knew we were going to have a couple kids out. That if the game was played on Tuesday, we wouldn't have had them out. There was no excuses there. With moving it to Saturday morning, you kind of run into a couple problems. One, a lot of our guys, we don't practice on the weekends, and mainly because a lot of our guys, have jobs and they have to work throughout the season, and all of them do a great job of adjusting their schedule to be on the weekends. And I keep the weekends free for them to be able to accomplish that, so that they can be here at practices during the week and games. So we unfortunately had a couple guys that couldn't make it because of work commitments, and then by the nature of it being high school sports, you have a couple guys that unfortunately did not set their alarms correctly, so they wouldn't wake up in time. And those are kind of just things that happen, whether it's dealing with kind of what our kids go through on a daily basis in Manchester, and a lot of them work, so many of them do, and then just being a teenage kid, sometimes you just don't set. We told them set a bunch of alarms, but the best way to learn is to screw that one up. I know I've done that before. I did that in college for a offensive line meeting that I overslept for, and it just, you learn from that mistake, and hopefully our guys learn from that.
It's definitely frustrating because obviously you want to make every game because you need everyone in our team. Everyone needs to be a strong link, and if you can't show up, then we're counting on you.
I think coach does a great job trying to keep our weekends open, but getting that missed schedule, and you go in there and you're like, woke up early this morning, for me, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to go there and I'm going to try to perform my best for my teammates. But it's definitely messed up a couple of our guys with that 9 a.m. start, 7:30 bus. But usually at the end of the day, you just got to grind through it and get to that bus and play that game.
Have confidence in your own ability to play the game. And we've practiced in the rain, so we know how stuff works. You just have to feel it out during warm-ups and just be ready for your stuff to be wet, your stick to not throw how it usually does. You just gotta fight through the adversity and just play lacrosse. It's really all it is.
Everyone else is playing in the same conditions. You're not by yourself in the wet stick. Everything, your stick's mesh is all getting stretched out. You just gotta try and go with the flow. Try and do what you can.
In that wet, rainy weather, that stick is definitely going to be a little more deep. It's going to kind of skip a little more, and definitely with that rain, it's going to get on the turf, and those shots that go low are going to skip a little more. So it definitely makes those shots a little harder to read, but with the stick especially, you're going to definitely feel that your passes might be a little more off, so you have to adjust quick. And definitely in that 30 minutes we start warming up, you got to adjust quick to that. And I think I took my warm up and I sat there and I passed 10 minutes during our warm up, so that definitely helped.
Be cognizant of your pocket. I think that's the biggest issue you can see in rain games, is that pocket kind of gets a little bit deeper. So you might need to adjust that bottom string a little bit, maybe tighten it up. I try to tell them to just be cognizant of that. Some kid sticks are fine throughout the rain. I know our face-off stick stays pretty good. That's the one we've strung up as a staff, and it seems pretty good. But just telling them to keep an eye on that stuff. And if you need to make an adjustment, we call timeouts at the end of a quarter. Like quickly make that adjustment. For some of the kids, many of them do have that backup stick, and it's don't be afraid to break that one out or warm up with that, so that in case your stick just doesn't take to the rain as well. Let's make that adjustment so we don't keep on making mistakes. But for us, it's just emphasizing, on top, besides the stick thing, is emphasizing, being really good with our technique, clean, crisp passes, making sure that we're not being lazy with our passes, making sure that they're, on a line, year to year, like really emphasize those things, because in the rain, those lighter passes might not travel as far. So making sure that we're clean with that was kind of one of the coaching points. And then anytime you can, try to get your gloves dry, try to get your stick dry. Anytime we have a timeout, just to make sure that we're staying on top of that stuff, because it can't be an excuse, but we've got to be able to adjust and understand that we're going to have to play the game maybe a little bit differently, or be maybe a little bit more patient or less aggressive in situations just based on the weather.
For us to stay in that game, I think was penalty minutes definitely didn't help us. We were man down a lot, so we got a lot of goals off of man down. So if we can stay out of the penalty box, I think we would have hung in there some more, because our offense was rolling out there. We were scoring a lot of goals. So if we could have probably stayed out of the penalty box, we probably would have stayed in it. So that's probably what affected us the most.
We were talking about that on Friday about, I had worked for, I had a coworker when I was at UNH that, had a saying about men, and it's be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, and take care of your people was one of the other pieces of that. And we talked about that, and then after the little, skirmish shoving match, told the kids I'm proud of them for stepping up for what they believed was stepping up for their teammate. But the true thing that they should do in that situation is never join in. It's grab your guy and drag him out. It's because once you get in, it's always the second guy that gets involved, and we don't want to escalate the situation. I try to emphasize that if those things happen, and they're going to happen, especially with young men in a pretty physical and violent sport at times, that and there's going to be some stress and pressure that comes from this sport, and when we find ourselves in that situation, it's stick up for your teammate by pulling them out of there and not allowing them to make the problem worse. Allow them a chance to cool off. It's not jumping in to shove another guy. It's just grab your teammate, pull him out of there, give him a big hug and drag him to the sideline so that we can kind of clean things up. And I'm happy my guys step up for each other, but we've got to do it in a smarter way, and definitely by just drag your buddy out of there. Don't cause a problem to escalate.
Once it's over and it gets broken up, you just kind of have to shake it off and just trying to forget about it. We talked to some of the Salem guys. We all were good afterwards. There's nothing really there. It's just in the heat of the moment, sometimes stuff like that happens, and everyone's just trying to protect their teammate. And nothing really inspired after that from it. It was just we all moved on and we kept playing across. That's really all it was.
As a goalie in hockey and lacrosse, definitely those skirmishes. My first thought is bench. Talk to my goalie coach. Get to analyze a couple more things. It's like a free timeout. I would love to protect my guys, but at the end of the day, getting to talk to that goalie coach for 10 seconds, even 30 seconds about how to run the defense is going to be crucial to winning that game. And that's what I think I do. But I've definitely seen a couple skirmishes in both sports, and I definitely want to protect my guys. But at the end of the day, getting that talk is going to be way more crucial for winning.
It was definitely weird. I've never really had that happen before, where that many people are in the box. I think there's 2 on our team and 3 on theirs in the box. So there's a lot of people with penalties, and it was definitely weird playing with that many little people in the field. But it was, it happens.
Seeing our offense trying to work that their triangle, and they can't cross over, was so awkward. Especially if I saw our team in that situation with our clear of heavy getting over the line with our defense, it looked really awkward seeing less numbers like that. But it's just you gotta score in those opportunities.
tied the game up 4-4, and our kids got excited. And as any young teenage boy does, they use inappropriate language to show their excitement. And it stinks that cost us a possession right away.
As a goalie, that shot going past you, you think, it's the end of the world, but it's not. I trust this offense. I've played for this team for 3 years now, both on offense and in net, and you just got to trust that offense to go in there and get that next goal. Unfortunately, we didn't, but in any type of game where I let one in, I trust my defense to get out there, pressure hard, do a turnover, force turnover, get the ball back over to our offense, and watch our offense move the ball and get it in the net. But it's unfortunate we didn't compromise on that situation.
We lost a lot of our energy with some stuff that happened, and along with we got more penalties again, which put us down. They scored some more goals, and just that late in the game after tying it up, and then them scoring 2 quick goals to go up 2 again with like 5 minutes left in the game kind of throws our energy off, and then from then on it just slipped away.
Talking with our guys, we've got to understand that we can be excited, but you've got to channel it in a better way. Now, do I think our players are being derogatory to anyone or anything like that? No, which I can understand why they're frustrated, But just unfortunate. And like you said, it kind of just seemed like it was a day that when you push the right button, immediately the wrong button went right after. So. It's just for them, it's a lesson in being able to combat that adversity, you know, a lot of times I think kids think like, all right, we need to fight through adversity. Okay, we're going to get one piece of adversity, and then once we get over it, it's going to be easier. And you know, in sports and in life, that's not true. Like you're going to reach that, you're going to overcome that adversity, whatever it is. And then another thing's probably going to come, and whether that comes the next day, 3 games later, or you know the very next opportunity, we just got to be able to you know stand up and stick our chests up and battle through that and improve. You know, and I think that's the lesson from that is that you know we're going to make mistakes, and you can argue if that mistake warranted the conduct that was called. But I think our kid, you know, and us as coaches and kids, and teaching the kids that. Fight through that adversity, and the next thing's going to happen, and we've got to fight through that just as hard and just as smart.